Today, we're going to talk about something that's affecting millions of people right now, the government shutdown. So let's just dive right in and break it down.
36. That's the number. As of right now, that is how many days parts of the federal government have been shut down. And the really crucial thing to remember here is that this number, it's still going up. There is no clear end in sight. And that number, 36, is a new and pretty unwelcome record. This shutdown has now officially blown past the 35-day record from 2019. That makes it the longest funding lapse in the history of the United States. So, what even is a funding lapse?
To really get the impact, we first have to understand how this whole thing works. What is a government shutdown, really? What's happening behind the scenes?
Okay, so it all comes down to money. Congress has to pass bills to fund the government. It's one of their main jobs. But when they can't agree and they miss that deadline, which is October 1st, the government legally cannot spend any more money. That forces it to hit the brakes on everything they decide is not essential.
And this is where it gets really complicated. This idea of essential versus non-essential. So things like national security, air traffic control, they have to keep going, right? For obvious reasons. But here's the kicker. The people doing those essential jobs, they are often forced to work without getting paid. Meanwhile, all the so-called non-essential stuff, like our national parks or passport offices, they just shut down. And their employees are sent home, what's called furloughed, also without pay.
So how on earth did we get here? How did we end up in the longest shutdown ever? Let's take a quick look at the timeline of the political gridlock that got us into this mess.
Okay, so it all started back on October 1st. And since then, believe it or not, the Senate has tried and failed a staggering 14 times to pass a funding bill. 14! Every time a vote fails, both sides just seem to dig in deeper, which is how we ended up right here, past the old record and in totally uncharted territory. It's a really stark example of how these funding deadlines are becoming major political weapons.
So while all that political drama is playing out in Washington, D.C., the real pain, the real consequences are being felt all across the country. Let's talk about the incredible human and economic costs of all this.
Just listen to this quote from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Bottom line, the well has run dry. It's just chilling. They're talking about the SNAP program, food assistance, that millions of families count on just to eat. And when that well runs dry, it means a sudden, desperate crisis for so many people.
And the ripple effects are just unbelievably wide. This isn't just about federal workers missing paychecks, though that's obviously a huge deal. It's also about travelers like you and me stuck in gigantic airport lines because TSA staff who aren't getting paid are calling out sick. It's Native American tribes whose funds were already stretched thin, now being pushed to the absolute brink. And it's people who are right on the edge of a new start.
And this really puts a human face on it. A user on Reddit posted this. They were just about to get a new job, a whole new opportunity, and then poof, it was just gone, all because of a federal hiring freeze. This is what the shutdown looks like at the most personal, gut-wrenching level. And what about the economy as a whole? Well, the damage is staggering. So far, federal spending has been cut by an estimated $33 billion. That is a massive hole blown into the economy, and it affects everyone, from small businesses with government contracts to the biggest corporations.
So all of this brings us to the one question that's on everybody's mind. How does this end? What are the possible ways out of this?
I mean, this stalemate seems so deep right now, with no obvious compromise on the horizon. What could possibly break this gridlock and just get the government running again?
From what we're hearing, there are two main efforts happening. The first is a kind of quieter approach. A group of senators from both parties is trying to hammer out some kind of compromise behind the scenes. The other option is way more controversial. The president has been pushing Senate Republicans to get rid of the 60-vote filibuster rule. That's a big procedural move that would make it way easier to pass a funding bill with just a simple majority.
And so, as we all watch to see how this plays out, it really leaves us with a much, much bigger question. Beyond the money, beyond the number of days. When our own system of government just grinds to a halt like this, what is the true, lasting cost of all our political fighting? That's really the question this whole shutdown forces all of us to think about. Thanks so much for joining us.